Testing is everybody's kid and nobody's kid.
And there are way too many fathers for testing.
Because it doesn't has to remain in a box. It doesn't has to remain within the boundaries. मुझे अच्छा बनाने की फिर कोशिश चली. मुझे अच्छा बनाने की फिर कोशिश चली. किनारे दरिया मिलाने की फिर कोशिश चली. कभी मैनुअल कभी ऑटोमेशन का वास्ता देकर मुझे मुझसे छुड़ाने की फिर कोशिश चली.
On the 7 schools of testing, where has that discussion gone? Nobody talks about it.
The great innovation that happened in India, Q patterns and extension to noun and verb by Vipul Kochhar. If we don't read these people, if we don't understand their ideas, if we don't learn from them, it's like, you are trying to think of relativity, but you don't know who's Einstein. Training kids is the first check. Training yourself is another check. And training your spouse is third check.
We named this podcast as Masters of the Craft. Here with Ramit, I will add one more line. He is a master of the art and the craft. Namaste. Welcome to yet another episode of our podcast series, Masters of the Craft. Ever since the first episode got launched, and we've been getting feedback on what kind of guests do we want on the show, and the first episode was pretty well received. Now, many names came to me, of whom to call for this next podcast of ours. And one name kept on popping up from the community, and that name was of Mr. Ramit Manohar Kaul, who is also called the Kaul Tester. Known for his staunch views, known for his very clear thoughts on software testing, known for being a great speaker in many conference forums. So we decided to call Ramit on this second episode of Masters of the Craft. I'm sure he'll have great insights to share with you. And all of that, one of the initial objectives for us when we started this podcast is we go beyond the trivial, we go beyond the normal, and we go searching for answers that usually are not provided in the community as such. So I welcome you all to this next episode of Masters of the Craft with Ramit Manohar Kaul. Let's get into this conversation with Ramit with a slightly unusual question. Ramit, I know you're a poet and who has not exposed his poetic skills much to the world. So I'll start with a small request for you to recite one of your poems. And do give us the meaning in English, because we would have audience from all over India as well as all over the world. And some poem that comes to your mind which suits the context that we're going to be discussing. So please start.
Namaskar, JP. Namaskar to everybody who is going to listen to this. Okay. A very small poem, 4 lines. मुझे अच्छा बनाने की फिर कोशिश चली. मुझे अच्छा बनाने की फिर कोशिश चली. किनारे दरिया मिलाने की फिर कोशिश चली. कभी मैनुअल कभी ऑटोमेशन का वास्ता देकर मुझे मुझसे छुड़ाने की फिर कोशिश चली. Now what this means, it is very difficult to translate anything literally, but I'll try my best. It is that somebody's trying to make me better, or somebody's trying to make me good, and it is like you are trying to have the two river banks of a river meeting together, which probably will never happen. And on the name of manual or on the name of automation, people are trying to take my tester from me and trying to make me something else. That's what I can think is the best translation of what I have tried to read.
So let me say Samyak and Atyuttamam, Ramit. I think you have set the context of some of the questions I wanted to ask you. But I will come to that question on this poem and this conflict that you're talking about, where people are trying to deviate the testers away to trivial issues and
Okay.
not let them concentrate on the right issues at this point of time. I'll come to that. Okay.
Yes.
But since your poem had something to do with manual automation and all, and this is all about definitions. Okay. So let me ask you a very, very frank question, because I sometimes say testing is a bastard science. You put five testers in a room, you get 20 definitions for testing.
Yes.
Okay. So, how would Ramit Manohar Kaul would like to define software testing?
Now, you rightly said, JP, that it's a bastard science. For example, if you look at programming languages or if you look at anything else, there might be set definitions, there might be contexts which have already been, created, standard set, for example. Testing is everybody's kid and nobody's kid, you know, and people change things as they like.
And there
Uh,
are way too many fathers for testing.
well, I think it also means that testing has a hidden power with it, because it doesn't has to remain in a box. It doesn't has to remain within the boundaries, and you can break it whenever you want. Now, if I have to define testing, though, we can then discuss for the next 1 hour only on this question, but I think if testers can look at the technology on one side and look at business on another side and find a way in between where the technology and business meets, and you try to give a product which is business ready, user ready, and tech ready, I think nothing can be better than that. So it must be somewhere in the middle of it.
I think uh, it's a great definition, but I see Ramit playing it safe there.
No, no, I'm not
Trying
playing safe.
to,
Seriously.
trying to take the middle path. This is not the Ramit that I know. You are taking the middle path of Buddha, where you don't want to antagonize any side.
No, no,
Are
no,
you
I'm
taking
not
the
taking
middle
that.
path?
No, 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 I'm not. See, uh, and I always believe that technology doesn't drives business. Business drives technology. It is the business needs. It's the end of the day. User needs what sells in the market, which is going to, what people are making. For example, why there is so much of talk on AI and machine learning, or uh, anything else around it these days, because this is what people see as the future, or this is what people see as we are going to sell in the near future. So emphasis is on AI ML, and that is what people are being fed every day through different channels to learn AI, learn AI, learn AI, because this is what people are going to sell. So if testing keeps it away from the business, or doesn't identifies itself running in sync with business or sync with technology, testing anyways is said to be, that it is behind everything else. So testing's definition for me is technology, business, and testing. The basic core of testing, it has to be somewhere in between. I am not playing it safe. This is what I always believed in.
Yeah, but this is a problem, right? Testing is always trying to play the catch up game. It's never out there defining the game, isn't it?
Yes, and unfortunately, of late, this is happening more, because if you look at 20 years back, probably when we started our careers and we started reading, uh, web started coming up, really well, and people started writing blog posts, and people started, trying to share the knowledge that they had. Luckily, there you will see a lot of innovation, a lot of explosive topics being discussed. People used to discuss everything under the sun very openly, without the fear that how the other person is going to uh, look at what we are doing or what we are saying. So there was a lot of discussion on exploratory testing those days, for example, or there was a lot of discussion on certifications, and people will not hold back, and people were still friends, even if they were talking on the different sides of the things, but they were still end of the day friends. And there was a lot of innovation. For example, if you look at q patterns, or if you look at other things that we did, extension to noun and verb, or other techniques that people will talk about in conferences. There was a lot of work which was getting done, and I was very excited those days that testing is taking its own word and defining its own shape and own word and own everything. However, in the last 5 or 10 years, I see that is dying. Now it's a catch up game, because somebody says something, somebody says DevOps, and then testers try to see testing in DevOps. Somebody says AI, and testers trying to say testing in AI. So it is a catch up game for me. As today, I think testing needs innovation, which is lacking right now in the testing space.
Do you think one reason for this lack of innovation today is like how it is happening in the world as general, that whenever somebody comes out with a contrarian voice, there is a cancel culture out there? Is that happening in the testing space also?
Oh, yes, of course. Look at LinkedIn, for example, which has become the biggest source of Gyaan these days. And when I say Gyaan, for my listeners, I am using all the sarcasm that I know. Uh, there's a lot of Gyaan, somebody sneezes, 15 management lessons that you got from that sneeze, or somebody does something and 10 management lessons or 10 testing things that you should learn from this. Every damn thing have a lesson today. I had written an article a couple of years, probably 3 years back, uh, where I said, ordinary is ordinary. Don't try to make ordinary exceptional, because then you are lowering the bar, and then everything else will become, wow. This wow for everything is not right. So, coming back to the question, uh, the way we talk about a principal defect clustering, that's why there have been testing family clusters now. So when one family says something, the entire family, which is very nice for that family, but they all try to cancel any other voice which contradicts or criticizes the other family. And this is not good culture for testing. We are fighting within ourselves, and then we are not looking at that as collectively. We need to make sure that as a testing community, we need to be at a place where we are talking about testing and trying to show people the value testing brings in. But that doesn't happen, because if I say something today which is, let us say, against certification, the certification bodies will start pounding on me. If I say something against non-certification, uh, or if I say, let us say that you have to be certified, then people who hate certifications will start pounding on me, and that is happening every day. So I think we should get away from this and think about how as a community we can grow testing together.
Yeah, you know what, Ramit, you make a very interesting point. So I saw this Gyaan culture on LinkedIn, and then using AI as well as some of my inputs, I wrote a very sarcastic article which I will not put in my name, but I put in
Mhm.
my name, which is called RIP Bugs Defect Management is Dead. And I wanted to know, do people really understand the gist of it? Because my whole theory there was agile has come, so defect management is not needed anymore. Okay. And I had people actually commenting, oh wow, till one person said, is this sarcasm? That's the only person who was the who understood this, and he criticized me. And that's the only person I said, yes, what do you think this is all about?
This is when I read LinkedIn, see, I also try to uh, okay, we'll talk about this little later, probably when the time comes, but uh, LinkedIn is my go-to place these days if I'm feeling depressed, if I'm looking at what I'm doing in life. There were few characters that I used to watch on YouTube. Let us not name them, but for the people who have been with me in close proximity, know who those people are. But now these days, LinkedIn is a place, because I have worked with some of the people very closely. I have had great interactions with some of the people for long durations, not necessarily that they were colleagues, but in conferences or in talks or in social gatherings, where they speak one language and their LinkedIn speaks another language. Okay. And when I read them, for the sake of friendship that we have, probably I will not criticize them publicly, but then it gives me a good dose of laughter on reading what these guys are trying to do. And LinkedIn is a funny place these days, very funny place.
So, for some of you who don't know, me and Ramit have been colleagues for, I think, donkey's years. And he's one of the finest minds I have worked with. And there's a story about Ramit, which I usually quote to a lot of other people in public forums, private forums, even to my children, for that matter. So, for those of you who don't know, today Ramit is a technology leader. He's a business leader. He's a top voice cell in testing, but he comes from a non-technical background, and When he was attending an interview for the previous company or the first company that he worked with to be a tester, apparently the interviewer asked Ramit that you come from a non-technical background or a non-testing background. What makes you feel that you will succeed in this particular career? And the answer that Ramit gave, and I think Ramit would have given that answer 25 years back, but I still remember that answer. The answer that Ramit gave is, I am the person born out of a competition of 1 million sperms and I succeeded. And I'm sure I will succeed here also. Was that the answer, Ramit, or did I
Yes,
rephrase
more
it?
or less.
More
Yes.
or less.
I won the
So
race.
you won that race. So this is the kind of confidence this guy had when I met him in his early stages of his career. But today, you're a business leader, an exceptional tester, a speaker at many forums, you're a trainer, you're a process consultant. Tell me, which role do you enjoy the most?
I think trainings, but not online. Trainings, when I'm meeting people, we are in a room together, because then training doesn't remain training, it becomes an interaction. And my training style, I'm not saying that it is the best in the world or it is, really bad. It is not bad because I'm training people from the last 20-23 years.
And
I think
I can vouch that Ramit is among the most exceptional trainers in the area of software testing that I
thank you
have
very
seen.
much. Thank you very much. I think when you talk to people, when you meet them, training goes beyond the boundaries of the syllabus or the topic that you are teaching, because you get breaks, you get to interact with people, you get to go away little from the topic that you are teaching, and you try to bring the best out of the people, which I think is not possible in an online training, because you're talking to a screen, and screen doesn't shows any emotion, so you don't see a smile on the face, or you don't see a nudge of the head somewhere, or you don't sometimes see that people are not agreeing to your what you're saying, and then you can ask people to why don't you speak little more? If you don't agree with me, let me know what you want to say. For example, in many trainings I have tried to identify people who can be really good in presenting something in conferences, and these people have actually presented in conferences. They have asked me what is the best story we can say, or how we should present in a conference. Or many people have said, I am very introvert, I don't know how to speak in front of public, what should we do? So I think when you are face to face with people, people have been the strength that I have in my entire life. So I think training's one thing that I really, really enjoy. Uh, Anything else? Reading. Okay, so I love to read. Uh, love to read a lot. I generally read books. Every time you will talk to me, I might be reading one book or another. And reading and training probably are the two things.
So you would be rather known as a good trainer than all the other roles that you play.
A
Is
good
that is
human being,
good
a
human?
good human.
That's primary. That's primary. So there are a lot of people who have the talent and have the knowledge, and there are a lot of people who want to get into trainings. What do you think makes a good trainer?
Oh, okay. Very tough question. Let me be very clear. You cannot make teachers. Okay. This ability of teaching is something which naturally comes to you. I think this is what my thought process is. I may be wrong. There might be some great teachers who would have, with years of practice and practice, would have become good teachers. But I think this ability to say something and then others also understand what you're trying to say, your thought process channelizing into words, and these words, then becoming a thought process in others' minds. I think this is something difficult. So I think as a teacher, you are either a teacher or you are not. If you're not, don't try to be one. Start at your home, try to explain something to kids, try to explain something to people around you. If you can explain something to a kid, which for a kid is kind of an alien knowledge. For example, if I try, my daughter is, for example, 11. If I try to teach her the difference between Python and Java, for example, and if she understands that difference, I'm a good teacher. If I fail to explain her the difference between Java and Python with, not giving examples which are not real life, then probably that's the first check, and I should not go into teaching. I think training kids is the first check. Training yourself is another check, and training your spouse is third check.
I think you're getting into very dangerous territory. I would not vouch for that last statement, and I disassociate myself with that statement if
No,
anybody is
see,
watching.
I,
Especially,
JP, I think, as a human, I'm 45 years old. Probably, I would have done tons of mistakes in my life. I'll do tons of mistakes, as I grow old. I think you cannot leave your basic nature to a side, and you cannot overpower that nature. See, by the grace of God, I never had a difficult life. I had, nice earning parents. Money was never a problem in the family. So I cannot tell you a story about, how hard my life has been. No, it has not been. I'm very sorry. And probably because of all these years of comfort, joy, and care that I have got, and luckily when I got into a job, the kind of people I met, you and others around us, um, they were not really the people who will just try to squeeze every last probably ounce of blood from your body. They were nice people, nice humans. So I learned from nice set of parents. I learned from nice relatives around me. And when I got into a job, my teachers, for example, my college teachers still remember me. And my principal still calls me after I have completed my engineering, how many, 20, 23, 24 years back, and people still call me from the college days. I still have friends there. And then I got nice set of colleagues who were ready to mentor, who were ready to help, who were ready to grow me. So I think uh, I didn't had to kill my natural way of dealing with the world. And I am never serious about anything. So probably the last sentence will tell you that I'm a very non-serious kind of person.
that's great to know, Ramit. Okay, Ramit, you have seen this industry for almost 20 plus years now. Have things changed, or are things still the same in terms of client expectations, issues testers are facing, skilling? Have things moved forward, or are they still the same?
So in certain areas, things have moved forward. In certain areas, we are still lacking what we were lacking 20 years back. For example, basics of testing. For example, test design techniques. For example, reading testing related books. For example, how many of testers even today in 2023 know about who is Boris Beiser, or who is Robert B. Binder, or who is Cam Kenner? Okay, uh, when you don't read these people, how many of we in India would have, read about the great innovation that happened in India, Q patterns and extension to noun and verb by Vipul Kochar. If you don't read these people, if you don't understand their ideas, if you don't learn from them, it's like, you are trying to think of relativity, but you don't know who's Einstein. Or, you know that apple has dropped, but you don't know why the apple has dropped. And because somebody told you the apple will always drop from the tree, and you keep teaching that, or you keep telling this to the next generation, that hey, look at this apple, this will drop from the tree. But why? Nobody knows. So when it comes to basics of the knowledge, I think that is where we are still lacking, the way we were lacking 23 years back. One more place where I think we are lacking is that as the companies which are driven by business, we try to make Shakespeare out of a nursery going kid. So we don't teach them alphabet, sentence, grammar, and then literature. We want a nursery kid to straight away jump from nursery to start reading Shakespeare and start understanding what Shakespeare wanted to say. Or, uh, for example, I know you are into a uh, lot of shastras and everything that you read. It's like, I have just read Gayatri Mantra, and the next thing that I want to talk about is Dvaita and Advaita and understand the duality. I know it is not possible. So, what has not changed? This basics, where you set the foundation of your testing career, This has not changed. It still people try to jump. What has changed? What has changed is that today I think testers are more brave. Today testers are more upright. Testers are more responsive. They are more proactive when it comes to what they need and how they can make products better. There are more voices today, which is a good sign. Whether these voices are saying things right or wrong, that is another thing. But the first part was testers started to say something on the social platforms. I think today testers have started to say things. Second thing that I really am very excited about is testers making tools. Okay, so of late in the last 5, 6, 10 years, you will see a lot of testers have started creating tools for testers, which was not happening probably 20, 23 years back. So a lot of people, I will be very happy to name few. Rahul Verma created a great framework around testing, or
Arjuna.
Sanjay is doing very well in Selectors Hub, and uh, please believe me, I am not taken any money from them. Sanjay and Rahul can give me whatever they want. Or for that matter, I might not know a lot of people who might be creating, multiple utilities around the work. For the people who are into automation, Naveen is doing great job in teaching people, about automation through his YouTube channel, and so on and so forth. So I think a lot of forums have come up. How many conferences of testing are happening today, which was probably only one or two conferences in an entire year, some years back. So what has changed? The ability to grow, the ability to express yourself as testers, the ability to create tools for the community, the ability to be more, uh, the ability to be a little more expressive in what testers need. I think that has changed in last 20 years.
So I was very very surprised to know when I met somebody from HCL Test One very recently. They've acquired most of the IP that belong to IBM, I guess, all the IBM testing tools. So it's an Indian company today holding all the IP. Uh, we all grew up with the IBM Rational and the Robo, and we were in awe. And all the testing tools were uh, either Israeli or US driven. And today we have many of the Indian companies have picked up these IPs and they are innovating on top of it. It's amazing what's happening, you know, in the testing space. At one point of time, I clearly remember test automation tool was a completely Israeli, domain, and they
Yes.
used to be the masters in that. So it's changing. It's changing. It's great. Wonderful. And another point that you were talking about books, etc. See, I sometimes go and ask people whom I train or whom I meet in the industry. These are testers who have spent 10, 15 years in this industry. And I ask them, have you heard about a book called The Art of Software Testing? And invariably, 99.9999% people have a blank face, and they've never ever heard about this book, which was the first book written on software testing by Glenford Myers. Be that any other industry, you ask who was behind C++, they'll say, and they would have read 10 books by him. Okay,
Yes.
but it's probably ours is one industry where they don't even know one of the foundation books that was written. That book might not be relevant today, but they've not even heard the name.
A lot of things will not be relevant today. For example, if you read, a lot of science, or if you read, a lot of maths or anything, things may not be relevant today to you, but there is a basic, founding block that you have to have. But testers, sometimes when I, you know, talk to them, probably it is not because nobody has told them, or it is because the kind of job profile they are in, or kind of job descriptions they are in. For example, I've never read a job description which says knowledge of various software testing books. I would love to see that. So probably when if I ever start such a company where I have to hire testers, one of the basic job descriptions will be how many testing books you have read. Generally, I ask in this interviews how many blogs you read, or how many people who have written good stuff, given you good knowledge on testing. Do have you read? There are a couple of names that people generally speak, but I think those names are more of because also the noise which is associated with the names, and that's why people would have read them. Otherwise, a lot of people who should have been read have not been read.
Not
Bottom
been
line.
have not been there. Very true. So you said something that is change, and a positive change that you see in this industry is testers are speaking up more. They're showing more courage. I remember you tweeted in 2018, and I think it's still your pinned tweet, that coverage, communication, and courage are the three most important skills for a tester. Tell me more about it. How do you bring these three C's together?
Okay, so when I test any software, for example, if I don't understand what I'm testing, if I don't understand why I am testing, the basic 5 Ws and 1 H, why, where, when, who, whom, and so on and so forth. When I don't understand the product I'm testing and I don't know really what I'm going to cover, or let us take, agile being, the thing these days. Let us talk from the agile perspective. I am doing an iteration. I don't understand what user stories are going in that iteration, or I don't know among those user stories, whatever the acceptance criteria are written. If I'm stuck at those acceptance criteria and I don't see beyond those acceptance criteria, I might miss testing some important quality characteristics of the system. To give you an example, I try to open, let us say, a new worksheet. So I write a test which says, click on the new, and a new worksheet should open. Now, I have not thought of performance as, a quality criteria. Even if that worksheet opens after half an hour, I cannot say this has failed, because,
So,
I never thought about performance. And if I miss that, then there can be problem. Or when people talk about test coverage as a single thing, people only realize coverage from the functional point of view. And if you're buying a De Beers diamond, you don't look at the weight of the diamond. You look at whether you are getting an original De Beers or not in the first place, isn't it? So if I don't understand coverage, now in the case of mobile, for example, if I'm testing a mobile app, I have to look at coverage non from the functional and non-functional perspective. I have to look at the OEM coverage. I'll have to look at the different, network coverages. I have to look at the operating system coverages, which might be missing in a conventional check. If I'm testing a non-deterministic system, then my coverage even has to be bigger, because there is no straight black and white in a non-deterministic system. So coverage and understanding of what you are going to cover, when you finally say in your exit criteria that, hey, I have tested almost everything that is important at this point of time for this business need, is what is coverage. Now, it is not only about how you test it. If I ask you, hey JP, how are you doing? And you go, I'm okay. Will I be very happy talking to you? Will I be encouraged to speak more? So, how you communicate what you know? Now, communication can be, one, you verbally tell somebody. Second is the data that you gather as a tester. That data will bring the value in front of the person who is reading that data. So if you cannot communicate, if you cannot tell people, uh, what you are doing, if you cannot change or translate it into proper words or proper metrics that you require, or you give too many metrics or too less metrics, and you're not able to tell people, hey, this is what value testing has bring to the table, people are never going to value testing. So that is the communication part. And third is, testers, I feel, always act as second class citizens in IT world. And nobody has put this second class tag on them. They themselves have tried to, put it on themselves. So being courageous to tell people, hey, this is what I am doing, and this is equally important as, anything else. If coding is important, if architecture is important, if design is important, testing is equally important. If you take a stone and don't use chisel and hammer to turn it into a beautiful statue, you cannot do it. That chisel and hammer work is being done by testers. So you have to be courageous enough to go and take your stand, tell people, hey, this is what I think is good for quality. Now let business take the decisions of whether they want to, release the product in public or not. But giving this information at the right time, at the right place. Sthan, Kal, Patra. Who better will know it, JP, than you? Okay. At the right time, at the right place, with the right people, you should be courageous to speak. For example, if I meet Modi ji tomorrow and I go, oh, I might ruin this opportunity for the rest of my life. So having the courage to say right things at the right time. So coverage, communication, and courage. Three
I
basic things.
So I think we have a new paradigm in testing, which is will be called the three C's of Ramit. Thank you so much, Ramit. That was very, very insightful. I think you have really thought deeply about it, and it's just not a tweet that you put out in the open. This is something that you have really thought about. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we started off this discussion with all the Gyaan and all that goes around, and I'm going to bring you back to that. And I'm sure you have a lot to talk about uh, because I know your feelings and your thoughts on it. See, there is this fight, and this fight always existed. Okay, this is not after LinkedIn became popular or LinkedIn became the medium. We used to have our own testing forums, etc. We used to have our own blogs. There is this fight on definitions. Moment some definition or a term is used, people pounce. I've seen, moment you say automated testing, somebody will immediately come and say it's not automated testing, it's software testing using a tool. And you know sometimes it's frustrating. I don't know, is it enlightening? Are they doing it for enlightenment of other people, or is it just because they want to claim a space? Do you think these semantics and this fight over definition is worth anything for the community?
Okay. I'll start with a very old story. Long time back, in a blog post, uh, somebody commented, you should try Cobra testing. And some other person commented, oh, I don't know about Cobra testing. What is that? And then I commented on that. I have to find that post. This was in one of the Yahoo blogs or something, a long time back. And I said, oh, you don't know about Cobra testing? It's the Cobra fist basically that you need to create. And this is basically comes from the Black Mamba technique. Okay. And somebody else who understood, what is happening said this entire thing is about the Python clutch that happens, and Python clutch started with Black Mamba and then Black Mamba started with Cobra, and probably we might see, some other types of testing. Unfortunately, I only knew about Black Mamba. If I would have known about, some other snake varieties, then I probably would have put that into the fray as well. No, for example, why to keep the vipers out and anybody else out of it? Should you know definitions? You should know the meaning of definition. Should you know? Are you going to see? It's like this, JP. I think if will a definition help me in becoming a better tester? If it is going to help me, fight for it. If it is going to put me into a dogmatic zone where I only see things from only one perspective, then probably definitions can be bad. I think you should know the story behind a definition rather than knowing the exact dictionary definition of anything. Because what is a dictionary definition today might change over a period of time. What we look at the cultural rituals or cultural ethics today were not there 2000 years back and will not be there probably another 500 years in the future. So what is my definition today? Is it going to help me? Can I do my job better? Can I help my business or technology center you know better? Can I create a product which is more useful to the people? I think if that is the sole objective, and then I'm fighting for the definition of something, and if that definition fight is going to help me in achieving that, fight for it. If it is not going to help me, then probably you are being part of the noise, and you might try to put up things. Probably this is 45-year-old Ramit saying it. 25-year-old Ramit would have said, why not fight for it? This is your definition. So you understand, my understanding also has changed over a period of time. I have fought with people on exploratory testing 20 years back. Today if somebody asks me, hey, exploratory is something like this, or automation is something this, what is checking versus testing, I will say move on. So today at 45 years I can say this, but this is my 45-year-old Ramit's answer. Please understand, 25-30-year-old Ramit's answer would have been different, and I would have fought for definitions then. Today
both of us would remember at one point of time there was so much of discussion on the 7 schools of testing. Where has that discussion gone? Nobody talks about it. At that point of time, that was the in thing, you know. Everybody was writing about the 7 schools, why they agree, why do they agree, which school is superior to that. Now, I don't think any new generation tester has even heard about those things.
Schools of testing is something that, when you talk to, I'll say, kids means people who are, let us say 0 to 5 year of their experience range, first 5 years of their job, they will not even know there was something called schools of testing.
Schools of
So
testing.
why to fight for the things, which are going to be very, they were not going to be as important as they might look like, they might look today. So, uh, I think definitions play their part because you should know the story behind the definition, but that's it. I don't think beyond that, you should be really, you should really care about, what any definition dictionary meaning is. There will be a dictionary meaning of the word. Try to find that from the English language. Reliability, ability to rely on something. How you rely on a friend is the same way you will rely on a system. You're not going to rely on a system from day one. It will take you some usage of that system over a period of time, and then you will rely on it. Okay. And same goes for any other thing. Usability, ability to use, you know accessibility, ability to access a system. If you make it more simple in terms of the definitions, I think uh, things will improve, things will change for you. And don't go into these fights. They are just noise. Get away from the noise as quickly as possible.
I think nobody could have put it better than how you put it. When you were speaking about the transient nature of these definition, I remembered a verse from Bhagavad Gita where Krishna says, "Avyakta dini bhutani vyakta madhyani bharata avyakta nidhanani eva tatra ka parivevana," which is Avyakta dini bhutani. Before you came, you were not there. Vyakta Madhyani Bharata. For a short period of time, you became Vyakta or clear. Avyakta Nidhaneva. After death, also you are going to go away. Tatra ka paridevana. What are you fighting about for all of this? So these definitions are also transient, and people take so much of mind
Pain,
space and time,
pain,
pain to
pain.
do this. Wonderful, Ramit. Okay. You are what I call as an agent provocateur at many a times, and with some of your posts and some of your, these days you are more jovial and you're on the joke side of things and sarcasm side of things. But a couple of years back, and you yourself mentioned that blog post where where you said awesome is awesome and ordinary is ordinary. There you highlighted that people are not criticizing enough, and there is need for clear constructive criticism. Only then you can build good teams. Do you really think that good criticism is not taken, people are not taking criticism the right way these days?
Okay, we might have to go a little back in the history. I'll take my example. Why I have to, go anywhere else. When I joined a company called Pure Testing, the first person who, let us say, was my manager was Satish Thakur sir. Satish Thakur sir has literally done this in office. He took my ear and said, "Hey Ramit, can't you think? Can you do it today?" No, you cannot. Question is why? I think the question is that as more technology started coming in our hands, as more social media started coming in, as we started making more online friends, uh, we started becoming more alone and alone in this world. You know, the more there are multiple examples of it, everybody will know about them. But I think we are more alone today than we were in a social group 20 years back. And because when we are alone, don't have a lot of friends to talk about in college or in in initial years of your job. Your friends who are the best of the friends are your best critics. Over a period of time, this patience of trying to take a joke on you, this has started going down. The kind of jokes that you would hear 40, 50 years ago, or the jokes that you will hear 20 years back are a strict no today. Even for the communities or even for the cultures where joke or being happy all the time was a kind of natural flow, they have also started taking this um, very seriously now, and you cannot say anything about them, or you cannot, you have to be very careful about what you say, because you might hurt a race or a culture or a religion or a set of people, and then these people can create a lot of noise, and then you might have to apologize for something that you are not apologetic. Now when this happens, when where you have to unnecessarily give an apology, you start going into a shell and you say, let me think, should I say this or not? And because of that, uh, and the rules of the game has changed. Today there are rules which are more, I will say, heavily biased towards one gender than the other gender. So one gender has to be very careful upon on especially in the office atmosphere, on what they are going to say, what can be taken against them. I'll be very open. I have had uh, people have raised uh, complaints against me that I have tried to take sexual favors. Uh, Fortunately, I was out of that, because there was never an intent. For the female colleagues of mine who have worked with me, they vouched for me. They said, the last person that I can think of is Ramit trying to do this. And I was very, I'm glad, I'm thankful to them for the generosity that they have shown. They were, brave enough to come openly and talk about it, and said, no, anybody but Ramit. So I was, out of that problem very quickly. But you have to be very careful. This probably, the culture was more open a few years back, or 20 years back. So people are afraid to criticize today. I think, look at your own family, look at your own kid. Can your kid grow and become a great human if you don't criticize your kid? If your kid keeps getting lower marks in studies, and is equally bad in sports, and is equally bad in social gatherings, has a lot of attitude problems, will you keep saying that kid, oh awesome, you are doing great? And do you think that kid is going to grow into becoming a better human? If that kid is not going to do that, and if the kid needs that constant check every time, why not the people who are working with you? So that is where I'm saying positive criticism, being very objective in the feedback, telling people, hey, this is what you have done right, this could have been done in this way, and this was awesome. Then you keep the bar, that awesome's bar, right. If you keep telling everybody awesome, you did awesome, or you that did that awesome, then awesome becomes the next ordinary. Now how will you define ordinary then? So that post probably was from the fact that um, I had a colleague who will say awesome to everything, and I really didn't like it, and I used to criticize people. And then this, I thought that for some time that we are playing good cop bad cop, but I soon realized that I've been marketed as a bad cop, because of this awesome thing. So that is where the blog post came.
Thank you so much, Ramit. I think that is, that is a dilemma I also have faced in terms of, you know, I've understood that external motivation by, you know, promoting or appreciating mediocrity is a surefire way of building bad teams.
Yes.
Then mediocrity starts getting celebrated, and then that becomes the new normal. Then there is only downhill, there is no upside to this at all. But
Right.
unfortunately, today, as you said, because of certain types of tendencies and trends that's coming in, mediocrity is celebrated. It's absolutely nothing. Sometimes we are just, viewers to this kind of actions that's being taken. Okay, thank you, Ramit. You wrote a beautiful article. I think it was right after the demise of your late father, where I remember the name of the post, and I've read it multiple times. I think it's called "Will 10,000 people cry when I die?" or "When 10,000 cry when I die?" And you delve a lot into the purpose of life and how you would like to be known as. Can you summarize a few points from that because I'm sure that post is very close to your heart also.
Okay. Can I first say something and then we come to the post?
Sure.
So we all know, or oh, that's wrong. We all may not know. There is something called iron triangle, isn't it?
Yes.
Quality, cost, time, people, process, technologies. There is a human iron triangle, and many scriptures have talked about it. Sthan Kal Patra, I have already talked about it. The place you are,
Can you put that in English? Sthan Kal
yeah,
Patra.
Sthan Kal Patra. The place you are in, that's Sthan. Kal is the time when you are in, and Patra is the people who are around you. Your personality as a person develops with these three, and you're part of that iron triangle. What you do today, for example, if I live in a toxic environment, I will turn out to be a toxic guy. If I live around the people who are self-centered, I might turn out to be a self-centered person. If my father or mother do certain things in a certain way, I will probably pick some of those things. And then depending on my own personality of how God has made me, or if you believe in God, or if you don't believe in how nature has made you, then that personalities will act as a catalyst to growing that kind of system more in you. And so if I have a little negativity in me, and if I see negativity around me, it becomes a catalyst and I become a negative person. And same goes for the positivity. Fortunately, as I told earlier, I have lived very comfortable life. I have been with best of the people, I think. And a lot influence that has been in my life is my father today. But unfortunately, that influence came after my father left this world. So when my father left this world and we started, for those 10, 12 days, the initial 10, 12 days that we have in our ism that we believe in Hinduism, a lot of people will come and meet you as a family to share their condolences, share their grief of the loss that we are facing, and they become the partners in that grief. Such a wonderful thing, that where people will come and people will try to lighten you up, making sure that you are busy for the next 10, 12 days, so that you don't have to think a lot about you know what loss that you have in the family. And I heard wonderful stories about my father, the way he had helped people, or the way he did things, and he didn't even told me. So you know I got a first hand experience of that. If you do charity with one hand, the other hand should not know. And this came right in front of us when we knew that, oh, our my father has done a lot of things and we never knew about it. Then when my sister passed away in COVID, unfortunately, in 2021, I knew a lot of things that my sister was doing and didn't knew about it. For example, there is a school, girls school, basically in Jammu, where she was supporting that entire school, giving them sanitary pads every month, and making sure that they have best of the books and everything. This is what my sister was doing, and she was such a close friend of mine. But believe me, she never told it to me that I'm doing this. uh, am I doing things? Let us keep it to me, if I'm doing things or not. But I think these were two great teachers who taught me a lot after they left the world. The post that you're talking about is after a year my father had left, almost a year. And I started, in that 1 year, thinking a lot about life. Now, how you want to leave this world? So I asked, fortunately I had asked this question to my father, that when somebody leaves this world, how you want people to remember you? First, should you? And if yes, then how? So my father said, it is the legacy that matters. It is not about what you have done in the lifetime. It is about when you have left this world, how many people will remember you, how many people will think about you, that, oh, this person was very helpful, or this person helped me here, or this person was humble, this person was great, I love to have this person's company when I was in a social gathering, and so on and so forth. And I started thinking about it and realized that if I try to impress people, and this is what a lot of people do, there's no shame in telling me that I also want to have the validation of people around me. How can I get that validation? Is it that I'm technically very good? Somebody else with better technical things will come and people will forget me. Can I be a good manager? Some better manager will come and I'll be forgotten. I soon realized, and very quickly realized, that people remember you if they love you. And when they love you, uh, then even if you are doing some mistake here or there, people will be, uh, you know, more eager to forgive you than to actually, take a revenge on you or something. Okay, so that was the start where that post came in, and then I started realizing how I want to live this life. And I think love of the people around me. uh, I think if you are humble enough to accept things, uh, if you accept your mistakes over a period of time, and uh, then you try to don't repeat the mistakes. I think I have been with you or Vipul from last 20 years now, almost 20 years now. Is it that I have not done mistakes? Is it that I have not, with Vipul? Oh, of course, the relationship is very different. I'll say one day, Vipul, I'm leaving, trying to do something, and he will say, okay, try it, do your experiments. And then after a few days, I'll call Vipul and I say, I'm tomorrow working with you again. He'll say, when had you left? Now, if I have such a person who is, mentoring me from last all these years, don't you think it will impact me? And when people start working with me, do you think I'm going to unnecessarily put pressure on them? No, not at all. Sthan Kal Patra. Now, there's a Patra in my life who is shaping me and shaping my decision making unknowingly. Okay. One great thing that I learned from people, and being a tester, you have to give attention to details, is, and I learned it the hard way, that don't advise people unnecessarily. Again, criticism on the Gyaan that people give on LinkedIn. Did anybody ask you about this Gyaan? Did anybody ask you, give me 15 management lessons from the building that collapsed? Okay. If nobody is asking that, you should not give that Gyaan. And that is the reason why I have stopped writing on LinkedIn. And I think when I will restart writing, it will not be Gyaan. When I read my own work that I've written on, there are very few articles, 5 or 6 articles. I think those articles started going into the direction of Gyaan. I don't want to do that. But there are people who ask me directly through LinkedIn messages, through WhatsApp, through other social channels, that, hey, we are in this trouble. What should we do? And all that. I try my best to my ability, to what I have as, I think as knowledge. I try to help them to the best of my ability. So no unsolicited advice. If people ask you, give the advice. Otherwise, people who have some kind of knowledge, you know you see a lot of, spiritual gurus, for example, they don't give Gyan unless people ask them. Okay, otherwise they are very content, they stay within them, and they are happy about it, because the real, uh, I will say, awareness comes in when you look within, rather than, trying to spread the things out. So no uh, unsolicited advice. And if somebody asks you for a help, why will you say no? If it is, if, see, it is like this. When you help somebody, either there is zero impact on you, or there might be 100% impact on you. In the sense, when I say 100% impact, you might have to take your loss, and you might have to help others. You have to set your boundary. For example, if 50% of your loss can help somebody, will you take that 50% loss? If 80% loss can help somebody, will you take that 80% loss? So I think, you for me, I know my limit. Similarly, somebody else should know their limit. And if you can take that loss, and somebody gets some benefit out of it, never say then no to that kind of help. But first identify what is that loss bearing capacity that you have. Because if you start going and doing the charity, then you should remember, charity begins at home. So if your kids are hungry and you're trying to be, good, and trying to feed kids on the road, then you're not probably doing something right. This is again my thought. I can be wrong. Some people might have a different idea. And always be on the righteous path. Never go wrong. Okay. Dharma, as we, talk about, be on the righteous path. And if JP is in trouble, will JP think about Ramit as the first person? So these were the thoughts that I thought are good, and over a period of time, I'm practicing them to be now becoming the principles that will govern me in my life. So that is where that, thought came in. Will 10,000 cry when I die? It was just for the catchy headline, but the idea is that, will people really feel bad that, oh, this guy is gone, and what legacy I'm going to leave when I'm done? So God has made us humans. There is a reason why we are humans. God has given us more uh, intelligence than normal creatures on this in this world. So we should be careful about, are we wasting this life or we are doing something good about this life. And if we know about it, we are done. That's the first step towards achieving something good in your life. And set those bars for yourself. Don't set it for anybody. It is not about today what JP thinks about Ramit or what people thinks about Ramit. If I'm good, I will shine. And then I don't have to say, hey, look at me, I'm such a great guy. JP will say it, people will say it, anybody else will say it, that you're a good guy. You don't have to project yourself. You just keep doing your work, do your karma, and uh, don't worry about anything else. If you are a believer in God, uh, then God has plans for you. So if you have to break a bone, you will break a bone. The only thing is that if you are good, instead of neck getting broken, probably a non-trivial bone will break somewhere here and there. But if a bone has to break, it has to break.
Has
It
to
cannot
break. Karma has to happen. It has to happen. But
stop.
what is the impact of that karma will depend on how you have lived your life and your faith. I think that's a very deep and poignant point that you're making. And when you're talking about charity, also, man, and you set that boundary. I think it's important that we set these boundaries in everything, and in what we are ready to contribute in a relationship to the society. All of this has to be, you should have a preset boundary, and many things go wrong when these boundaries are crossed, or when you do things with a lot of expectations that something is going to happen, and those that is not reciprocated, and that's where things go wrong. I think you make a very, very important point. I'll
I
come
think
to the
same goes with testing as well. A lot of testers today, when I talk to them, they try to learn a lot of things. They want to be good performance engineers, security engineers, AI testers, and so on and so forth. I think it's like testing something. If you are trying to identify your path, try to use samplers. Do something in performance, do something in security, do something in AI, do something in something else, and then see where uh, what what is something that you like out of all these things, and then try to be best in that. A lot of people will say, if you don't know automation, your career is gone. I think a good tester will always be valued, irrespective of whether that person knows coding or not coding, because testing as a fundamental thing is a thinking ability. It is not about writing code. Code is available on Stack Overflow. Tomorrow it will be available on something else. Okay. So writing code may not be important. Knowing the grammar of the language that you are using. For example, if you are using Java, know the grammar of Java. If you're using Python, know the grammar of Python. That is more important today. So for testers out there, whatever I said, the gist of it for you in your career is that uh, try a sampler of everything, and then within that sample, look at what is something that you like. Okay. And once you have liked it, then convert that like into love. Love doesn't happen in the first sight. That's only in the storybooks. Okay. It takes time for love to develop. Liking, yes. So like something and then probably follow that dream. Good testers will always be needed. Anybody who says AI is going to kill your jobs or something, AI might change your job profile. I agree, but will the testers be required? I think with AI, testers might be required even more than what is happening today.
no, you bring a very interesting point. I see a lot of people make these statements of, if you don't know AI, you're finished. If you don't know automation, you're finished. One day I was having this conversation with a very, very senior person. I said, this is going to happen, and all of this is going to get wiped out. And I told him, this is almost like the story of the boatman and the priest, where the priest kept on asking him. Instead of the priest, today we have these experts who say, do you know, the boatman and the senior tester or the test expert are going across a stream, and do you know performance? No, I don't know performance. Do you know AI? I don't know AI. Do you know automation? No, I don't know AI. Automation. Suddenly the boat starts leaking, and the boatman or the normal tester says, do you know swimming? Else because that's the only skill that's going to save you out here.
Of course.
Okay,
People,
so these
people,
doomsday
people know.
scenarios have been there, yeah, but you make a very relevant point. Uh,
See, I'm trying to, tell people that the job profile will change. There is no doubt about it. The way we were doing testing probably 10 years back is not going to be the way we are going to do testing 10 years down the line. But will that change the fundamentals of testing? No. So build on that skills, make sure that, if you are going to be in job for the next 10 years, and you are going to, be dependent on that salary for the next 10 years, 20 years, build on your fundamentals, make them super strong, because anything that you build on a very strong foundation can easily be built. Anything where the foundation is shaky, one small earthquake, 4 Richter scale, and the entire building will collapse. So don't try to make, skyscrapers with very weak foundation. That is what the idea is.
Wonderful, wonderful. I know, Ramit, knowing you personally, you're a very deeply spiritual person. How much has your spiritual longing and all the things that you do, and the swadhyaya or the studies that you do related to your spiritual practices, how much of that has influenced you as a professional? I know it has influenced you as a person. How much of that has affected you or influenced you as a professional?
So I started reading, or I started into spirituality probably in 2014 or 2015. Till that time, I was mostly into fiction, non-fiction books, basically, or something which had nothing to do with spirituality. I think reading also has its own life, and it grows on you as you keep reading books. Uh, that is what has happened with me. Today, I read a lot of non-fiction. Uh, I think when I moved into and started reading spirituality, I was already in a position where I had to take certain decisions over a period of time. How spirituality has helped me as a professional. Today, I take more decisions with a more calm mind. I I am becoming more sum. I don't know how sum can be now, discussed in or can be translated into English. I think that
There is an
the
equanimity in the way you
yeah,
deal.
I'm more balanced today. I don't get super happy or super excited on a lot of things, but I don't equally get, super sad if something is not going the way I wanted it to go. Now, because of that calmness that I have today, when I have to take a decision, I take better decisions today, whether it is my business or it is the work that I'm doing. For example, you already know, and I have already told it, you have already told it, that I am doing trainings from last many years. Uh, Earlier, if somebody will criticize me on any point, I used to get a little aggressive on, how can you say this? I am the trainer. Today, if somebody counters me, I say, okay, let us listen to your perspective. Let us understand what you're trying to say, and then we try to find a mid path. If the person is correct, and there are many times that people can be wrong about that subject. There are many times, as far as I know about that subject, people can be wrong from, um, if I compare them to what I know. And sometimes people can be right, and they might give you a very beautiful but a different perspective. So, with reading or going into spirituality, today I accept people more easily, and then trying to find a consensus and understanding is much better. How that has helped me professionally when I deal with my clients. I'm into auditing, for example, or I am into couple of other things, which may not be relevant to testing, but I, for example, do a lot of auditing. I, as an auditor, I am bound by the controls that are there in that, particular certification. For example, if I'm doing ISO 27001, I'm bound by the controls which are in 27001. Now, if somebody has not presented a proof of that they are fine, following that standard today, uh, as a as an auditor in 2014, I used to go into a consulting mode, and I will start telling them, you could have done this, you could have done this, you could have done this, which is not auditor's job, by the way. Okay. uh, but I didn't have that control over me. Today I have that control. So I know when to stop. I know when to start. I know when to run. I know when to shout. I know when to use the language of eyes. Uh, I know when to put my point across and don't. For example, somebody asked me for a discount. Today, I know it better when to offer a discount and when not to offer a discount. For example, now people might say, "Oh, this is a business decision." A lot of people are doing it. Uh, a lot of people are doing it already without any spiritual knowledge. So, how spirituality has helped you? To those people, I am not a natural businessman. I don't come from a business family. I'm the first generation businessman of my family. So, I don't know business. Also, I come from a bloodline where business is not the natural instinct of that community. So, I'm trying to do something which is not natural to that community. So as I grow into my spiritual practices, I am becoming more calm. I can take better decisions for my business. I can, what you call that word, where you have to give work to other people rather than taking all the responsibility on your head.
Delegate.
I'm
Delegate.
delegate. Okay, so today I am better at delegating work than I used to do 10 years back. 10 years back, I had to do everything. I was a perfectionist. Perfectionists don't go anywhere, they get stuck at the same place throughout their life. Okay, perfectionism will not build wealth for you, any kind of wealth, not just the materialistic wealth, but spiritual wealth or any other kind of wealth. If you want to be perfectionist, for example, if I'm reading Ramayana and I said till I don't understand every single word that has been written in Ramayana, I'm stuck there because there are 16 other Ramayans that I have to read there. So I will not go beyond it ever. So you have to be little careful. I think with more and more spirituality, I'm becoming better in my profession as well. I don't know any other thing uh, that I can give answer to this question, but
Yeah,
business decisions better.
that itself is a very, very deep insight in terms of taking decisions with the equanimity of mind, which is very, very important, because moment you take decisions which are not balanced, and that becomes a recipe for disaster many a times, not only in business but in personal relationships, and even the tests that you do or how you communicate back to your developers. All of this is very, very important, and you bring in a very, very important thing. Now, Ramit, it's I know it's always a pleasure speaking to you, and whenever we meet in person, we have these very, very long conversations. But it's an absolute honor for me as the host of this podcast uh, to have you, and because this is so refreshing, the perspectives that you bring in are so refreshing. So there is not even one moment where my attention was away from you. I was, I'm sure even for our audience, they will be hooked on to each and every word that you say, because those are words that come, which has been chiseled out based on your experience, based on your wisdom, and they come from the heart. Okay, they don't just flow out for the sake of coming out. So thank you so much for being part of this podcast. We named this podcast as Masters of the Craft. Uh, Here with Ramit, I will add one more line. He's a master of the art and the craft. Thank you so much, Ramit.
I'll just add one thing, at the end. 2007, towards the end of 2007, start of 2008, four friends are sitting in a bar. Okay, and they are obviously they will not be drinking milk there. So someone in that group said, "You are going to be the next JP." Okay, you are going to be the next JP. I still feel in my entire career, this is one of the most wonderful compliments some
You're
colleague of
Ramit.
mine had given me. Hold on, let me finish. This is 2023. JP hosting a podcast. I'm the guest. Who is privileged here? Who is honored here? I think the entire honor and privilege this time belongs to me. I'm super happy. So I think it is all my pleasure. It is all my honor that I have been, given an opportunity to speak, and I hope that people learn something about, from this. And if they feel to reach out to me, I'm available, on different social channels, and
You'll be
they can
putting out all the links to reach out to
please
Ramit.
reach out. Okay. I may not be very prompt in replying because I don't have a marketing team behind me. I do all the work myself, but I will reply. Thank you very much, JP. Thank you for
Thank you,
the
Ramit. Thank you so much. Oh, what a cracker of a conversation we had. When I knew that Ramit will be joining us for this podcast, I knew it's going to be something special. And it has been something special. Speaking up, starting from his definition of testing to his poetry to his the way he perceives things so clearly, his clarity of thought about this craft, this art, this technique, the technologies behind it. And you would have seen he's very, very open in his conversation. It was a no holds barred conversation, as I can put it. We have dealt into many topics, and I'm sure there are many, many lessons and insights that you would take away from this podcast. I'll meet you all in another episode where we have another interesting guest. Till then, it's goodbye and namaste from me.